Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Happy weekend. Thank you for listening, whether it's on the America One Radio app, AmericaOneRadio.com, Progressive Voices via TuneIn, via podcast. Thank you for wading on into the water. We appreciate that. Let's see. While one candidate is out stumping and saying things like this.
If I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy. With all I have done for Israel, I received only 24% of the vote, but I understood that.
I guess you
that
should,
was in 2016.
In your history.
And, you know, it's one of those things. I thought I'd do much better. I happen to have a Jewish daughter. I have a Jewish son-in-law. I have 3 Jewish grandchildren. I thought I'd do much better, but I only got 24%.
He is whining to the Israeli-American Council about this, y'all. He's playing the I know Jewish. I have a daughter who married into a Jewish. He's playing that card as for why before a crowd of Jewish people as for why they should support him, pandering to Benjamin Netanyahu, who by the way is not even popular in Israel and less popular with Jewish Americans in the United States. Anyhow, I digress. While you have him doing Trump things, Kamala Harris had a sit down last night. And listen, let's not mince words here. It was an infomercial. I grew up in the era when Ross Perot was running for president. Remember him? Now see here. Ross Perot literally bought gobs of time on network television for infomercials and impacted the 1992 presidential election to the support of Bill Clinton, it turns out. But I digress. This was an infomercial, but at least it was a constructive infomercial. It was a sit-down interview. And I will say this. You will never see, I would hardly imagine you would ever see a situation where some very honest questions are asked by folks in the audience, even Oprah Winfrey, discussing some very current and real issues facing this country. The economy, for example. By the way, there was in the AJC poll that we dived into yesterday, they did a little drilling in on how Georgians feel about the prospects of the economy. And things are looking a lot better. At least we feel that way. Michael Cannell, Zachary Hansen at the AJC reporting that economic matters still rate as the top issues in Georgia voters' minds with a little more than 6 weeks to go before this year's presidential election. But new polling shows that voters have tilted tentatively towards optimism. Views of the economy have grown rosier, with 58% of respondents saying they expect the economy to improve over the next 12 months, according to a poll conducted this month for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. That's up from 42%, a 16% jump, who felt that way in June. In January, that figure was just 36%. We're at 58% optimistic about the economy now, up from 36% in January of this year. And with the Fed just dropping their prime rate down half a percentage point, you got to think that folks are feeling a little more optimistic about that. Anyway, the economy came up a lot in the sit-down with Oprah interview, and I'm just going to give you gobs of audio from this interview last night in case you didn't sit down and watch it. Like, I had softball practice. I had work to do. I didn't get to watch TV last night. I didn't get to tune into YouTube. It was on YouTube and TikTok. It was on the X. It was everywhere. Didn't get to watch it, but I do have the audio, so let's just listen to it together.
Please welcome Kamala Harris.
Oprah always does that.
So welcome
Oprah.
to hello, Madam Vice President. Hello, welcome to Michigan.
It's so good to be back. And Governor, thank you for everything you are and everything you do for this state. Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
Can you see this? We have 1,000 screens
goodness.
here representing people from all over the country.
Hi, everyone.
Can you feel? Can you feel? Can you feel it? Can you feel the joy rising in here?
I can, and I have to tell you, there's so much that I love about our campaign because it really is about the people. And I look around at these screens, Oprah, I look at who's in the room, and this is America.
This is
America. You know, I was saying with a group of friends earlier, I think in this moment where we've dealt with so much that I think is quite exhausting around powerful forces that would try and divide us and try us to have us as Americans pointing fingers at each other.
Yes.
That this movement that is about reminding each other that we have so much more in common than what separates us is so critically important. And this is about the strength of who we are as Americans. And this movement that we're in about, as I like to say, seeing in the face of a stranger a neighbor.
Yes.
Right? An extension of love thy neighbor, that you literally in the face of a stranger see a neighbor.
Yes.
And approach each other with that level of dignity and grace and kindness.
Man, I tell you what, in the wake of all that has gone on in Springfield, Ohio, if that's not an important message to drive home, that just because folks who live next door to you may not have been your neighbor for, I don't know, more than 2 or 3 years, that you may not fully understand their background, that they may speak a different language than you, or at least English being their second language isn't the same as, or isn't as strong as your primary language. What an important message to drive home, to see a stranger as your neighbor. Goodness, I had Pastor Carl Ruby on from Springfield, Ohio Central Christian Church earlier this week. I'm an atheist. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and I remember the teachings of Jesus enough to remember that that's how he wanted us to walk through life, to see a stranger as our neighbor, to see a visitor, a refugee, an immigrant as our neighbor, to welcome them. I don't remember there being a passage about demonizing them.
You know, there's so much at stake in this election. And ultimately, the question before us is, what kind of country do we want to live in? And the beauty of a democracy, as long as we can hold on to it, the beauty of a democracy is each of us has the power. Each of us has the power to answer that question.
That's right. Everybody on this call and beyond has the power. But can I just start with this?
Yes, please.
I have to say this because in all of my private conversations, Gail, and I've said this 100 times, and everybody is saying it, you all have said it, I know you have. It seems to us that something happened to you the moment President Biden, stepped aside and withdrew his candidacy, that a veil or something dropped and you just stepped into your power. I mean, literally, looking at you at a speech like the week before, which was a great speech, very nice, and then the next week, I saw you walking in the thing. And I said, what happened to you?
You know, we each have those moments in our lives where it's time to step up.
Time to step up.
Time to step up, you know?
Well, the moment you heard, I mean, I really have been saying to people, it felt like a veil dropped and you sort of stepped through that veil. Did you feel like that?
I felt a sense of responsibility, to be honest with you. And with that comes a sense of purpose. But I mean, we're all here and you all are taking time out of your busy lives, everyone here, everyone on the screen, because there really is so much at stake. You know, I have spent the majority of my career being concerned about the well-being of other people.
Yeah.
As I've said, my career as a prosecutor, I never looked at a victim or a witness and asked them, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them is, are you okay?
Are you okay? I know when I heard that.
Let's contrast that with what we just played at the start of this show.
If I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy.
The enemy. Is that divisive rhetoric, by the way? Should we run that through the divisive rhetoric meter?
You know, ever since the debate, We feel for our fellow citizens in Springfield. Do you not think about the fellow citizens in Springfield, Ohio, the Haitian families, the non-Haitian families, everybody having to deal with this lie that has endangered the lives of Haitian people and anybody who looks Haitian? Everybody in America feels for that. And everybody in America, left, right, middle, has concerns about immigration. Yeah. And I'm told that Justin, where are you in the audience? Justin.
Hello.
In our audience.
Hello, Madam Vice President.
You live in Michigan.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't love saying hello, Madam Vice President.
I do.
What's your question? It's an immigration question.
My question for you is, when you become president, what would be your specific steps? Yeah, of course. What would be specific steps to strengthening the border?
So it's a wonderful and important question. My background was as a prosecutor, and I was also the elected attorney general for 2 terms of a border state. So this is not a theoretical issue for me. This is something I've actually worked on. Okay. I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I take very seriously the importance of having a secure border and ensuring the safety of the American people. Sadly, where we are now can be traced most recently back to the fact that when the United States Congress, members of the Congress, including some of the most conservative Republicans, came up with a border security bill. And here's what that border security bill would have done. It would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border. Let me tell you, those border agents are working around the clock. It would have just been about giving them some support and relief, which is probably why the border agents actually endorsed the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl. And I'm looking at people from all over the country here, so I don't need to tell the folks who are watching this what fentanyl has done to families, to kids in our country, and the need to take seriously stemming the flow coming into our country and addressing that extraordinary and tragic issue in terms of its effect. The bill would have allowed us to have more resources to prosecute transnational criminal organizations. And it would have been part of the solution. And Donald Trump called up those folks and said, don't put that bill on the floor for a vote. He blocked the bill, and you know why? Why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And he has put his personal political security before border security. Because understand, even in the intervening months, what that bill would have done to give support to folks who care about this issue. And this again gets to the point about what does leadership really look like? And is it about you or is it about the people? Right. Is it about running on problems or fixing problems? My work and my career has always been about saying, let's fix problems. Let's address the needs, because we know it's within our capacity to do that.
So to answer Justin's question, now that that bill has gone and hasn't passed, will you reintroduce that?
Absolutely. And when I am elected president of the United States, I will make sure that bill gets to my desk and I will sign it into law.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
And listen, that is a capitulation not to the left or left of center. That is a capitulation to moderate centrism. There are a lot on the left who are not happy with that bill. We're not happy with that bill. A lot of advocates for broader amnesty rights. So when you listen to that question and then that response, do not think that that is just a capitulation to the ultra-Marxist progressive wing of the Democratic Party. That was a very centrist answer. We get more of this Q&A when The Ron Show returns on America One Radio and Progressive Voices via TuneIn. You can follow The Ron Show on your preferred social media platforms, by the way, at Ron Show ATL, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads. We always give you the show notes as well. You can see this entire Unite for America sit down. It was like an hour and a half long star-studded event before and after the conversation with Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey. Let's get right back to that. Another tough topic, the economy, cost of living.
A majority of young Americans, 18 to 34, say that the cost of living is their top issue ahead of the election. Well, Rachel and Garrett are joining us on Zoom from Pennsylvania, and I understand your sister and brother-in-law moved in, and you're hoping to save money to have a second child?
That's right. Hi, Oprah. Hi, Madam Vice President. It's nice to be with you all.
Yes.
Hi.
And so what did you want to say to the Vice President?
So, Madam Vice President, we are, like many, many young Americans, just experiencing a very high cost of living. We ended up giving up our apartment, moving in with our parents, who were so gracious to take us in for over a year so that we could save money and ultimately buy a home, because that's what we thought the American dream was, to get married and buy a home and have a baby. And now here we are, and our mortgage is incredibly higher than what we thought it would be. And my sister and our brother-in-law are living with us right now so that they can hopefully one day do the same. And while it's beneficial for us because they help us pay off some of our mortgage, it's also beneficial for them because they can save on cheaper rent. But we really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family, and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been. And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries. So that's why I'm taking on, for example, price gouging, which is when, most companies and corporations are good, but for those bad ones, they take advantage of people, especially during a pandemic or extreme weather, and they end up jacking up prices, and there needs to be accountability and consequence for that. So I'm going to be taking on price gouging. But it's also about dealing with what we need to do around home ownership. Look, I grew up a child of a mother who worked very hard. She raised me and my sister, and she saved up, and by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy a home. And we grew up actually for a long time in an apartment on top of a child care center that was owned by the woman we called our second mother, because she helped my mother raise us. And she was a small business owner, Miss Shelton. So I'll bring all this together to tell you the way I think about it is, one, when people work hard and have a dream of buying a home, we should give you the opportunity to be able to do that, which is why part of my plan is for first-time homeowners, buyers, to have a $25,000 down payment assistance to buy your first home. Because people just need to be able to get their foot in the door, and then you'll do the hard work.
By the way, can I just tell you, I work in residential real estate. I am a realtor here in Atlanta, Georgia. I hear a lot from a lot in the real estate industry, those who are, of course, doing well, have done well for quite a while, and they kind of poo this idea like, oh, if everybody gets a $25,000 tax credit, folks are just going to raise prices by $25,000. Well, that's not exactly how it would work. First of all, not you hear the term first-time home buyer, right? We all hear that term, right? That would apply to someone who is a first-time home buyer, legitimately a first-time home buyer, not necessarily someone who owned a home before and is buying a home again that may not own a home currently. There are a lot of people in the mortgage industry you can use that first-time home buyer. There are a lot of credits and incentives out there for first-time home buyers who aren't actually first-time home buyers. But you have to imagine in a situation where Uncle Sam is going to dole out $25,000 for a first-time home buyer credit, that actually this is going to have to be your legit first purchase. And also that you need it. It's not, I can't imagine where we're just going to dole out money to folks who don't need it. So it's not going to be one of those situations where folks who are selling a home know that, well, now that I got the house on the market and Kamala's president, there's that $25,000 credit. I'm just going to jack the price up by $25,000. Well, it doesn't work like that, first of all. Second of all, the home still has to appraise for the value or the loan doesn't get approved by the lender. The lender's not going to approve a loan for more than the home is worth. So the tax credit doesn't just jack prices up by $25,000. There, thought I'd explain that. Let me get back to the conversation.
Part of my plan is what we need to do to support small businesses, because my second mother was a small business owner, and I love our small businesses and our small business owners. They are not only business leaders, they are community leaders. They mentor, they hire locally, and we have so many entrepreneurs in our country who have great ideas, incredible work ethic, but not necessarily access to capital, because not everybody, like my opponent, was handed $400 million on a silver plate that he filed bankruptcy 6 times on. And so part of my plan is to give startup small businesses a $50,000 tax deduction to start up their small business. Right now it's $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So that's part of my plan.
That's a teeny tiny business.
That's a business in
teeny tiny
right,
business.
Like, it's a concept of a business, right? You know where I'm going. That's right. And
It's still on paper with the $5,000.
Right.
It's still on paper.
It just hasn't happened,
Right.
Part of to speak to you guys and your family and your dreams is what we need to do around giving middle-class families tax breaks. And so part of my plan is also to extend and expand the child tax credit to $6,000.
And we all know Republicans love tax breaks, so they should be for that, right? Anyway, we'll pick up on that conversation. Got a hard break. The Ron Show on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
All right, don't mind me, just doing a bit of a deep dive into last night's Unite for America rally, a sit-down, a Q&A with Vice President Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey, 1,000 folks on screens throughout the walls of the studio, and of course the studio audience as well. We were listening to the Vice President talking about tax breaks for middle-class Americans. Keep in mind, by the way, we hear so much about the Trump tax cuts, how much they were progressively beneficial for the well-off. The nation's top 5% of wage earners getting nearly 45% of that tax cut. Most right-wing tax cuts since the era of Reagan have actually skewed that way. And not at all coincidentally, the wealth gap has soared. In contrast,
to speak to you guys and your family and your dreams is what we need to do around giving middle-class families tax breaks. And so part of my plan is also to extend and expand the child tax credit to $6,000 so that you can, in the first year of your child's life, have the resources to be able to buy a crib and a car seat and clothes for your baby, knowing that's such an extraordinarily important time in their development, and you shouldn't have to worry about how you're going to take care of their basic needs. All of this and more is part of what I plan to build, and I call it an opportunity economy. And it's basically about creating opportunities, knowing so many people have the ambition, have the aspirations, are working hard, but just need opportunity to reach their goals and their dreams.
and you know how you know this works? I'll tell you how you know this works. We know because we have empirical evidence over the last essentially 5 decades that giving tax cuts progressively to the well-off while giving crumbs to the middle class doesn't actually boost the economy. It's kind of like a line of blow. Not that I know what a line of blow is. You get a temporary little boost, a little jolt. It's like, okay, let me just do the Red Bull thing then. All right, you swig a Red Bull. You feel a little bit of boost of energy, but then you have that hard crash after the fact because it wasn't real. When you put more money in the pockets of American consumers, the working class who consume all the goods and services that the well-off and their corporations own and provide us, what do the consumers do with the money? We spend it. And sometimes I would even say irresponsibly. I think I said when inflation was crushing us all, man, sure would be nice if President Joe Biden would have that fireside chat and tell Americans, hey, listen, this is tough, no doubt about it. We're trying to deal with it. And they have, by the way. We're trying to deal with it. And we're trying to deal with it in a way that doesn't crash the economy, which they managed to do, by the way. And it might be time, if this is tough for you, to tighten your belts. Do you need Netflix and Hulu and Paramount and all the other streaming services? Do you need Peacock? I mean, not to call out Peacock. I'm just saying, do you need all of those streaming services? I made those decisions myself. In fact, in a matter of days, I just realized that I can combine my mobile and my internet and I can eliminate one of my streaming services and save $110 a month. You best believe that I'm signing up for that. I mean, it's like a 12-month deal, so I'll revisit it in 12 months, but that's what I'm going to do because it's saving me money. I could stand to save some money right now. But that's the sort of conversation that we don't have as Americans. Anyway, I digress. I wanted to get back to the fact that, like, giving these tax credits to qualifying folks, the first-time homebuyer tax credit, $25,000, will help with home sales, of course, obviously, but it's not going to go towards every house that's for sale and with everybody that's out there buying. It's going to help the first-time home buyer who is suffering right now. Trust this real estate agent when I tell you, the first-time home buyer, man, that tax credit is sometimes the difference between being able to buy a home and not being able to buy a home. The down payment, the closing costs, the associated costs, you got to pay for the inspection. There are a lot of costs that go into buying a home aside from just the down payment, the 3% or whatever percent that you're going to get with your loan. The $6,000 child care tax, these are all going to benefit the consumer who is going to turn around and put that money that they've saved back into the economy, which will just wind up back in the hands of the corporates and the wealthy in the first place. It's just that it's not going to go directly to them so that they can decide, do I need to spend it or do I need to just put this in an interest-bearing account and continue to grow interest on it like I've been doing with all my other tax cuts. They don't need it like you and I need it. And that's why we know that this would work. A rising tide lifts all boats. Trickle-down economy, well, we've been waiting for that since the 1980s. Is there anything trickling down?
I saw you smiling with that $25,000 credit for the home. I saw that smile on your face and the $6,000. Thank you all so much. I want to just introduce to Shelby, who's also in our virtual audience. Thank you guys. Shelby from Virginia, who's also struggling with the cost of living. Tell us your story, Shelby. Why?
Hi, Madam Vice President. Hi, Oprah. I'm 24 years old. I'm a graduate student living with my parents, and I want to move out next year and potentially buy a home. And I'm concerned about the affordability of one with the extra costs and bills I'm paying now, along with the bills and costs I will pay in the future too. And so everything just has a cost and everything is so expensive. And so I'm worried about my capacity and how I'm able to fully support myself once I do live independently.
You sound like one of my daughter girls from South Africa graduated. She was like, I hate adulting. I hate adulting. This adulting isn't going so well. Yes.
Well, so first of all, congratulations on all the success you've already achieved. And it is your story and the story of our friends before you is really, that's the American story, right? You are working hard, you have goals, you have ambitions. And so part of it is, again, the $25,000 down payment assistance. Part of it is what we need to do to also push back against a very different vision for our country. Because look, in this election, there are two very different visions for our country. One, for me, that is focused on the future, including you, and another that is focused on the past. What Donald Trump, what my opponent plans on doing for the economy is doing what he did the last time he was president and giving another tax break for billionaires and the biggest corporations that would add $5 trillion to our deficit. And get this, he plans on doing what I call a Trump sales tax, which is basically he's going to put a 20% tax on everyday necessities that economists have estimated will cost the average American $4,000 more a year, which is why Goldman Sachs, which is why Moody's, which is why Wharton School of Business.
That's the school Donald Trump allegedly attended, by the way.
Which is why 16 Nobel laureates have collectively determined, after analyzing our plans, one, mine would strengthen the economy, his would weaken it. Two, that on his plan, he would actually blow up inflation
again
and invite a recession by the middle of next year.
Again.
So when you think about the cost of living, my approach is about lifting you up. His would be about actually weakening our economy. And I feel very strongly when an individual, when a small business, when a family, when the middle class is strong, America is strong.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Rachel and Garrett. So the Harris campaign kicked off the Fighting for Reproductive Freedom bus tour to support the fundamental right for women to make decisions about our own bodies. And here is a short tape on that.
I did something that nobody thought was possible. I got rid of Roe v. Wade.
After Roe v. Wade was overturned, Tennessee put forth a ban immediately that banned all abortion with no exceptions.
Abortion bans are not pro-life. They are pro-poverty and pro-inequality.
It's been over 2 years since a 5-4 ruling by the Supreme Court ended Roe versus Wade, the landmark case that provided nearly 50 years of abortion rights across the United States. Since then, abortions have been banned in over a dozen states. Many women and doctors say the limits on reproductive rights have forced them into unimaginable situations.
These policies do not reflect evidence-based medical practice. They do not keep my patients safe.
According to the gender equity policy, women who live in states where abortion is banned are up to 3 times more likely to die during pregnancy, during childbirth, or soon after giving birth.
I nearly died, all because of Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices overturning Roe v. Wade.
So for the millions of you who watched the Democratic National Convention, you will remember Hadley Duvall telling her incredibly powerful story. And in case you didn't see it, here's just a brief look.
Growing up, I was an all-American girl. Varsity soccer captain, cheerleading captain, homecoming queen, and survivor. I was raped by my stepfather after years of sexual abuse. At age 12, I took my first pregnancy test, and it was positive.
Hadley is here. Stand up, Hadley. We are all standing up because we are so impressed by your courage to stand up and share your story. Where did that come from, the strength to do this? Because I'm sure you thought long and hard before deciding to go public with your story.
When Roe v. Wade was overturned,
thanks everybody,
I woke up with a harsh reality of my abuse was over, but my story is not. And I just could not fathom thinking about the other Hadleys out there that don't have that choice, that don't have somebody to go to. So being able to find courage and be the light for them, that's really what I do it for.
And so what do you want to say to other people who are voting in this election regarding what happened to you and what that means?
You can't wait until it's too late to care about reproductive health care, because then it's too late. And when it affects you, it hits, and you can't deny it. You can't look at someone with a story like mine and say it didn't happen. And there are more people like me out there, and there are gonna be so many more who deserve their options. They deserve their choices. Let's get involved. We have someone who's willing to hear us at a level like never before. We have someone who wants to know what we want in this country. We have someone who wants to lift up our voice. And we need to show out and show up for her just like she's showing out and showing up for us.
All right. Is there something you wanted to say to Madam Vice President?
Madam Vice President, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for seeing us, for hearing us when the Supreme Court won't. Thank you for fighting and, really showing us that life is not about the hard things that you go through. You don't bow down, even when you're the underdog, especially when you're the underdog.
That's right.
You stand up and you stand tall, and you give me so much hope and so much strength, and thank you.
Honestly.
Thank you, Hadley, for coming all this way. I hope you continue to use your voice. I hope you continue that. This week, the case of a young woman who lost her life after the abortion ban took place in Georgia made national headlines. Amber's case came to light through the reporting of journalist Kavitha Sarana with ProPublica. And so listen to her story.
2 years ago, 28-year-old Amber Nicole Thurman, a medical assistant and a single mother to a 6-year-old boy, found out she was pregnant. Amber had just secured her own apartment and was thinking about going to nursing school. She made the decision to terminate her pregnancy. A strict abortion ban had recently taken place in her home state of Georgia, which caused Amber to travel to North Carolina for the procedure. Traffic made her miss the appointment, so the clinic gave her medication, what are known as abortion pills. Once back home, Amber experienced profuse bleeding, vomiting, severe pain. She eventually passed out. Her boyfriend called for an ambulance. At the Georgia hospital, Amber's condition deteriorated quickly. In a rare occurrence, it was discovered her body had not expelled all the fetal tissue and an infection was spreading. Official Georgia State medical expert analysis of her case says Amber should have received a life-saving D&C, but doctors waited 20 hours before deciding to take her to surgery. Amber's blood pressure had taken a dive. Her organs had started failing. In the operating room, her heart stopped. On the way to surgery, Amber's last words to her mother were, "Promise me you'll take care of my son."
When we come back, you will hear a conversation with Oprah, the vice president, and some of Amber's family members. Tragic story. There's actually another that came out from ProPublica. We will dive into that in just a few minutes. You're listening to The Ron Show on America One Radio, AmericaOneRadio.com, Progressive Voices via TuneIn, or wherever you podcast. Final few minutes of The Ron Show, reviewing last night's Unite for America rally, hosted by Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey! As she had the opportunity to interview Vice President Kamala Harris with a studio audience and 1,000 folks via Zoom on screen surrounding the two and the studio audience. We left off listening to Amber Thurman's plight. She, of course, lost her life after Georgia's abortion ban went into effect. There's actually another story ProPublica just rolled out this morning. Again, Kavitha Sarana reporting from ProPublica on the plight of Candy Miller, who passed away after Georgia's abortion ban because she wasn't sure herself, not a medical professional, but just a woman who was pregnant, wasn't sure herself what to do in the wake of Georgia's abortion ban. Amber Thurman's family joined the vice president and Oprah last night. I'll let you take a listen to some of that.
Amber's mother, Shanette, and older sisters, CJ and Andrika, are here, and they wanted to be here tonight to speak out for the first time. Ms. Shanette, what do you want us to know about Amber's story?
Initially, I did not want the public to know my pain. I wanted to go through in silence, but I realized that it was selfish. I want y'all to know Amber was not a statistic. She was loved by a family, a strong family, and we would have done whatever to get my baby, our baby, the help that she needed. When ProPublica came to my home, I pushed them away. No, but Kavitha, she was persistent. She said, it was something that you needed to know. You have to hear me. Women around the world, people around the world need to know that this was preventable. 2 years later, after speaking with my daughters, because I lost strength, I lost hope, you're looking at a mother that is broken. Mm-hmm. The worst pain ever that a mother, that a parent could ever feel. Her father and myself and the family, you're looking at it.
Well, we appreciate so deeply you being here. And we're all watching you hear that tape and those words. We know how re-traumatizing that is and the strength it takes for you to be here to tell your story. And we deeply appreciate it. And I have to ask you, as her sisters, how are you coping? And what does knowing that this could have been prevented, how does that sit with you? How do you cope with that on a daily basis?
I mean, it's heartbreaking. You know, that was my baby sister. I loved my baby sister, you know. I'm beyond hurt, disappointed. I feel guilty. I wish I could have helped her, you know, because she was suffering. Mm-hmm. And we had no idea. We trusted them to take care of her, you know. Mm-hmm. And they just let her die because of some stupid abortion ban. They treated her like she was just another number. Mm-hmm. They didn't care for her as if, you know, she was their daughter or their, you know, granddaughter.
Yeah.
You know, and she's not here. She'll never come back.
Yeah. Andrika, what do you want to say?
I want to say that it's very disheartening that my sister was allowed to suffer for 20 hours. She suffered. It was nothing that we could do to help her. We trusted the healthcare professionals to do their job and save her, but they failed her.
Well, I think the most powerful thing that you've said here, Ms. Jeanette, is that your daughter is not a statistic. She had a life. She was loved by her sisters, loved by her family, loved by those who knew her, and she's not just a statistic. And we are happy to speak her name tonight in this room, talking about what this country needs in terms of reproductive rights and freedom. What do you want to say, Madam Vice President?
I'm just so sorry. And the courage that you all have shown is extraordinary, because also you just learned about how it is that she died. And
they just recently learned, yes.
How?
Yeah.
And Amber's mom shared with me that the word over and over again in her mind is preventable.
Yeah.
Preventable. That word keeps coming to her. Mm-hmm. And this story is a story that is sadly not the only story of what has been happening since these bans have taken place. And, you know, so just to step back in terms of how we got here, the former president chose 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would overdo the protections of Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. And they did as he intended, and in state after state, including yours, these abortion bans have been passed that criminalize healthcare providers. In a couple of states, prison for life, Oprah. Prison for life in a couple of states for a doctor or a nurse who provides health care. And so it seems very apparent
even when the mother's life is in danger.
But see, here's the problem with that. So is she on death's door before you actually decide to give her help?
Mm-hmm. That's the problem.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. That you've got to prove you're on death's door.
Like literally a doctor or a nurse has to say, she might die any minute, better give her now care. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise I might go to prison for life in some cases. Mm. Think about what we're doing in terms of saying that certain people who are in these state houses, and then starting with the former president of the United States, think they're in a better position than a doctor or a nurse to determine when their patient needs medical care. This literally, and Amber's story highlights the fact that among everything that is wrong with these bans and what has happened in terms of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it's a healthcare crisis. It's a healthcare crisis that affects the patient and the profession. And going back to Hadley's story, and Hadley, you've been so remarkable. in telling your story and being so strong in the way you do it. And both of these stories really, I mean, the courage for it out of pain, for you to tell these stories to help other people is just extraordinary. And Hadley, you've been so remarkable. You know, Oprah, I don't know if you know this, but when I was in high school, I learned that my best friend was being molested by her stepfather.
Yes, we heard that story on the DNC.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
you had the courage then to go to her and say, you've got to come to our house.
And she came to stay with us. I called my mother, she came to stay with us. And the idea that these same legislators who would be saying, you know, criminalize healthcare providers are also saying that after a person's body has been violated, that they have no right to make a decision about what happens to their body next? That's immoral.
Yeah. I think it's not just immoral. But here's what I want to say. I just don't believe that those legislators, that the government has a right to be in your womb. They have no right to be in your womb with decisions about your womb.
And one does not have to abandon their faith.
Right.
Or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do.
Absolutely.
Right? If she chooses, she will talk with her priest, her pastor, her rabbi, her imam, but not the government telling her what's in her best interest.
Well, this is a long healing process for this family. And we thank you, and we hope that by being amongst people who heard you and heard your daughter's story will be meaningful to you in this journey to healing. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, I want to also... Thank you.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because there was the parade of celebrities. There was Julia Roberts and Tracy Ellis Ross. But let's get back to talking about substantive issues because I think that's what we're here for, right?
So another important issue this election is, of course, our safety. And just 2 weeks ago, our country experienced yet another horrific school shooting. Watch this.
It's 10:30 a.m. at Robb Elementary in Uvalde. The school is recognizing my 10-year-old daughter, Lexi, for receiving all A's. 30 minutes later, a gunman murders her, 18 classmates and 2 teachers.
In the last 25 years, there have been 417 school shootings in the United States, and more than 383,000 students have experienced gun violence while at school.
More children and adolescents are killed by guns each year than anything else nationwide.
Just 2 weeks ago, Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia, became the latest area to face every parent's worst nightmare.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air, the deadly high school shooting, 2 students and 2 teachers killed. Police and parents racing to the scene outside Atlanta.
Oh my goodness. There is a shooting at my granddaughter's school.
We had to drag our teacher's body into the classroom. We heard him take his last breath.
We live in a country where 383,000 children have been exposed to gun violence. Now just sit with that number for a second. It's a number until it's your child. This is not normal, y'all.
Yep.
This is not normal, and this is not right. Other people in other countries do not have this issue. We, Americans, we have to do better. We have to do better. We cannot continue to just settle for our thoughts and prayers. Lives are being destroyed. 15-year-old Natalie Griffith and her parents, Doug and Marilda, are here. And Natalie, we are so sorry to know that you too have been added to that number because you were in algebra class when you were shot twice by a 14-year-old fellow student. We're so glad that you lived to tell your story. And so how are you tonight?
Well, before that thing, the video, I was very happy. I still am very happy to be here and to tell my story and what happened, because it was a terrible thing, and it should not have. What's it called?
Where were you shot? Where were you
I was
physically shot?
Right here on my shoulder, and then around here, right wrist.
I was saying that
my wrist.
383,000 students in our country, the United States of America, have been exposed to violence. That same scene that you experienced in your school. Had you all been having, drills or preparation for what should happen? Should there be a shooting?
We have. I've had intruder drills and fire drills and stuff. In my old schools, we've had a fire drill at Appalachia, but it was the first 2 months of the school year. We hadn't had an intruder drill yet, so we weren't even completely sure where to go in the classroom. We all just, I remember being huddled.
So I was watching your mother, even just when that tape was coming on. It's still very much PTSD, very much traumatic. You're still reliving it. And how has it been for you? How were you notified that there was a shooting at the school?
I was notified by a friend. She called me, I was at work. And she called me and she said, "Do you know about the shooting?" With the school that she goes to, the Appalachia. I said, "No, I don't." And then she said there was a shooting at the Appalachia High School. My heart just dropped. My heart just got so heavy, and I could not stop. I had to leave. I told my coworkers, I gotta go, I have to leave. And my first thing I did is drop my knee on the floor and just start praying. I prayed for about 30 minutes for my work all the way to the school. I didn't get to the school on my car. I had to leave my car at a gas station about maybe 2.5, 3 miles. And I walked on foot and I ran because my heart was so heavy. I couldn't get to touch my daughter.
And I hear you have a message for people in power regarding guns now.
I do. I want to finish that story because no parent should go through this. I want to just finish what, the experience. You do not know what feels until it's you.
Yes.
All those numbers that you show on the TV, a lot of people, they're here are mothers. What are we doing about this? What are we doing? Let's make sure that everybody listens. Let's make sure that everybody hears it. The whole world needs to hear that we women that have our children, we have a job. That job is to protect our children. That job is to protect our nation. That job is to protect our country. We cannot leave. We cannot let that go on. We have to stop it. Where I was asking earlier, where are those people? All the shooting, where are they? They needed to make a noise. I'm ready to make a noise about this, and I'm ready to stop it. Because no one knows what feels when you can't find your child, when you call her and you call her just not answering. When I went through it, it's just me that knows it. And I'm so sorry for those that lost, the children actually died. I can actually hug my child. My child is here, and I gave all this praise to the Lord. Our Father in heaven saved my child. But the other two mothers, they lost their kids, and the other teachers that died. Those people are suffering like I'm suffering. I'm very sorry for them. I'm very sorry that they lost their loved ones.
And you have a message for the people in power.
Yes, the people in power. Let's make it a change. Let's make it happen. Let's make, let's just not hear about this. Who wants to just hear about this? We gotta change it. We gotta make it happen.
And Doug, I hear you're not a registered Democrat, but you now say it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on when it comes to this issue. What change do you want to see now that it has affected your family?
Common sense,
I think the first step would just be metal detectors in schools. Make a budget, make a plan, and the people that say, "Well, we've never really done stuff like that before," I don't care. They didn't have metal detectors at airports at one time. They didn't have metal detectors at courthouses. I think that if a child knew that he would get caught, the likelihood of him trying would be, there may be another target, but it wouldn't be us having to worry about schools being hardened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Doug has said it so eloquently, which is we just need to apply common sense. And look, I think for far too long on the issue of gun violence, some people have been pushing a really false choice to suggest you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and I'm in favor of assault weapons bans, universal background checks, red flag laws. And these are just common sense. These are just common sense.
I thought it was so powerful at the convention when you said you have guns. No, at the debate.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes. I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
my staff will deal with that later.
Yeah. But you have been a gun owner for a while.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
But here's my point, Oprah, is that I'm not trying to take everyone's guns away. I believe in the Second Amendment, but we have to agree that, look, I did last fall a college tour with college-age young people, so I also did trade schools, and packed audience every time in their auditorium, and I would ask, please raise your hand if at any point between kindergarten and 12th grade you had to endure an active shooter drill. Almost every hand went up. It was bone-chilling.
Yeah, this is the way our kids are living. Yeah.
And think about it. I grew up, we had fire drills only. Well, I grew up in California. We also had earthquake drills. But the fact that our children are sitting in a classroom where they should be fulfilling their God-given potential and exploring the wonders of the world, and some part of their brain realizes somebody could bust through that classroom door with a weapon, with an assault weapon. And let's all agree that the trauma, so many children, even those who have not directly experienced the tragedy.
Just being in the environment. I
cannot tell you the number of young people who, our kids had active shooter drills. They're concerned that there might be somebody who would kill them while they are at school. This is not the sign of a civil society, and it doesn't have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. But we need to have the courage to act. Look, my opponent, when he was told and knew about a shooting of a young girl, you know what he said? Get over it. Get over it. No, we're not getting over it. No, and to the point, everyone should have a sense of collective responsibility for the children of our community.
Yes.
And understand their right to live and be safe. I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I know, I've seen autopsies. I've seen what these weapons do to the human body. And we've got to agree that, in particular when we're talking about something like an assault weapon, it's literally designed to be a tool of war. It has no place on the streets of a civil society. It's designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly. And there are things we can do. Thankfully, over the last 3 years, we've done some, but it is common sense.
It just seems like common sense we would see this. I think that the majority of Americans agree with you that we do not want assault weapons in the hands of children and other people who have no business with those types of weapons.
Right.
We know this is true. So we thank you, Natalie, and your family for being here. And good luck in that marching band this year. I hear you're going to go out for the marching band still.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, it's a sad moment for us, but I wanted to make sure that, we came because we needed to be heard. And we needed to, change has to be made, and we're ready to fight for this.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and I normally wouldn't even bask too much in the whole look who showed up celebrity stuff, but Meryl Streep asked, I thought, a pretty poignant question, and I wanted to hear the response to it.
I wonder if we're ready for January 7th, 8th, 9th, and what happens? What happens?
So we will be ready, but just taking a step back, and thank you, Marilyn, for just the gift that you give, your talent, your creativity. Thank you for being here. One of the things that I have realized in the course of our campaign is that more Americans than we may realize who voted for Trump before have decided January 6th was just a bridge too far. When we reflect and think about what January 6th was, where the President of the United States, sitting in the Oval Office, incited a mob, a violent mob, to attack the United States Capitol, such that 140 law enforcement officers were injured, some were killed. To try and upend a free and fair election where the American people voted, that was a bridge too far for a lot of people. And we have sadly now seen how far he could go. And I think there is absolutely no tolerance whatsoever for the vast majority of Americans for that. And they've seen the lies. They understand, for example, almost every court case, I think every court case where he's challenged an election, he lost. I said on the debate stage, look, because he's having a very difficult time, obviously, processing the fact that 81 million people fired him, right? But, so there is that it really was a bridge too far for so many people that they are not willing to repeat. But the other piece of it is the lawyers are working. It's very important that we all speak to our friends and our neighbors about misinformation and help them now see how it occurs, where it is occurring. It is important that we stand up for the integrity of poll workers and people who are working on election day. And that we also, and this is critically important, that we ask people to be alert about mis and disinformation, and we ask them, do not be afraid to vote. Because I think there is also something quite insidious about these attacks on the electorate in these various forms that are intended to convince people that their vote won't matter. And in that way, there's a little bit of reverse psychology going on here, and let's just make sure nobody falls for it. Your vote does matter, and we cannot let anyone ever take our power from us. We can never let anybody silence us. And when we get those votes out, starting soon, early voting is already going to start this week, I think, through November 5th. And let's make sure everyone votes. And we are going to have a good election day. We're going to fight for the integrity of the people's voice and for our democracy. And, I'll just mention earlier, a couple of folks talked about what this means in terms of the world. Oprah, as vice president, I've met over 150 world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and kings. And the thing about representing the United States of America is when we walk in those rooms around the world, we have historically and traditionally been able to walk in those rooms, chin up, shoulders back, with the self-appointed and earned authority to talk about the importance of democracies. People around the world are watching right now. Because you see, the thing about walking into a room and being a role model is people watch what you do to see if it lines up with what you say. And in that way, the consequences of this election are directly going to impact the American people and people around the world. That's what we're fighting for, and those are the stakes. And that's why we're going to win, because we know what we're fighting for, because we know what we stand for.
Thank you, Meryl. What is on your heart to say to the American people as we have 47 days until November 5th? What's on your heart to say to particularly those people who are still undecided or maybe indifferent or on the fence still?
We love our country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country. We take pride in the privilege of being American. And this is a moment where we can and must come together as Americans, understanding we have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's come together with the character that we are so proud of about who we are, which is we are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being, because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are, which includes freedom to make decisions about your own body, freedom to be safe from gun violence, freedom to have access to the ballot box, freedom to be who you are and just be, to love who you love openly and with pride, freedom to just be. And that's who we are. We believe in all that. And so this is a moment where we stand knowing what we are fighting for. We're not fighting against. It's what we're fighting for.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice President. Thank you. And I want to say, thank you, Madam Vice President.
And then Oprah closed with this little poignant monologue.
I just want to say, for all of you watching who are still on the fence, you're in the middle, you're independent as I am, or whether you're just still don't know what you're going to do. This is the moment for all decent people, all caring people who want the best for yourself and you want the best for other people. This is the moment for people who are tired of all of the bickering and all of the name calling, people who are exhausted by the craziness and the made up stories and the conspiracies. This is the moment. You want to get on with your life because you know that we can do better and that we deserve better. You know this. I know you know this. I know you feel this. I know this is what you're saying amongst yourselves. It's in all the conversations that we're having, that you're having. And we're better than this. We're better. We're better. And we want to create a world where our children will be safe in school again. And as my friend and mentor Maya Angelou always said, when you know better, you got to do better. Thank you. So let's do better and vote for Kamala Harris.
Again, from a historical perspective, it was an infomercial, not unlike what we saw back in the early 1990s when Ross Perot was running for president. He just bought up gobs of airtime on network television. It was a unique scenario. And while the Kamala Harris campaign didn't take that route, they did just about the next best thing. They took to social media networks and channels and Zoom and put together a pretty all-encompassing message and a at times poignant and tear-inducing and goosebump-inducing message as well. That's going to do it for today's Ron Show and for the week as well. I thank you for listening. Whether it's on the American One Radio app, AmericanRadio.com. Obviously, if you're listening to the extended version, then you listen via podcast, and I thank you for that as well. We have all the show notes at ronshowatl.com. Back Monday, 9 to 10 a.m., 5 to 6 p.m. on American One Radio, 7 to 8 p.m. at Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Have a great weekend.